Welcome to the Soul Script podcast. Here we explore how to unlock the power of our story. Our journey here on earth can be one of deep passion, intentional creation, and personal transformation. The only thing holding us back is our stories. Come and join me as we rewrite and reignite. Welcome to the Soul Script podcast. Welcome back, or maybe welcome for your very first time. I am glad you're here. I am excited to be here. And today we are talking about, once again, something that I love. Maybe I say that on every single podcast, but this subject that we're talking about today is probably the one that I embody the most, that has been a part of me since birth, and that I want everybody to understand. I'm not going to spoil this for you. You're going to have to come along on this whole journey so that at the end you have this vivid picture of what it is that I want to show you today. So we're going to start with in just a few days from now. So this is something happening in the future. My little family and I are leaving to go to Costa Rica, where we're going to spend 1 month basically just bumming it on the beach. We have an Airbnb that is 3 minutes from the beach, and I strategically picked these beaches out, the nearby beaches, because they are well known for being great beaches for beginner surfing. And I have this crazy desire to go and surf. My desire to surf is not the only thing that I feel excited about in life. Like when I was born, surfing wasn't always on my list as something I had to do, but I absolutely love to experience all the things in life. And so being a landlocked little Utah girl, I have not had the opportunity to learn to surf. So we are going surfing. And a lot of people, when I tell them that our family will be gone for a month, and that we're going to be living in Costa Rica, they often start with, oh, like, is it for work? Why are you going down there? And I reply with something like, we're just going because we want to go. And I often feel like people are maybe uncomfortable with that idea. And I have to explain myself, and I have to validate it and back it up, because the idea of just going to Costa Rica, just to go to Costa Rica, is like almost unfathomable for people. This idea of going and doing something for fun just for the sake of doing it for fun is weird, at least to most people that I talk to. To me, though, this is something that I live for. I am an Enneagram 7, and if you don't know what that is, Enneagram is a type of personality typing, and so there's 9 different numbers that you can be, although you can have like kind of a variation of that number, depending on how it shows up for you specifically, but I am a Enneagram 7, and Enneagram 7s are definitely programmed with the love for having fun. And they notoriously have a very difficult time getting deep and facing the things that scare them, having uncomfortable conversations. And I think that that aspect of a 7 was a part of me in the beginning, but it's something that I've kind of learned my way out of. I actually really crave being deep, and I crave those introspective conversations. But the fun part, the part that is just like, let's go live life. If it doesn't have fun in it, then I don't want to do it, is very, very strong within me. And this is something that I think I was born with, but was also cultivated within me. My dad was somebody who is also like this. He really loves to go and explore, to just live life joyfully and abundantly just for the sake of living it that way. I have to admit that I live a pretty darn fantastic life, and I'm not trying to brag. It has taken me a long time to get to this point where I feel like I have acknowledged the life around me, because that's the other thing about being an Enneagram 7 is that we often look forward to the future, and that looking forward to the future often blinds us from what we're experiencing right now or what we already have experienced. So it actually takes a lot for me to sit down and look around at my life and realize, holy crap, this is really a cool life. And not only is it a cool life, but it is the life that I actually have always wanted and always been looking for. I don't need to keep looking for this life. I already have this amazing life that I have curated through manifestation. Now, I know that we've talked about manifestation before, and there are so many elements to manifestation and understanding it on a deeper level. And we're going to continue our conversation about manifestation today in this kind of fulfilling bucket list type feel, and also just living a joyous and abundant life just for the sake of living it. Now, we need to back this story up a little bit to the very first time that I ever manifested anything, at least consciously, in my life. We're constantly manifesting stuff all around us. If you look around at your life, I'm pretty sure you'll find that the thoughts that you have are being manifested in some way around you. So you're constantly manifesting. When we consciously manifest, that's a little different. We have power over what we're bringing into our life through our thoughts, through our words, and our actions. So I learned about manifestation and had this idea in my mind about what manifestation is. But I decided to put it to the test. I was taught that you could imagine and dream anything, and that thing would come into your life. It would just kind of be called to you. If we want to talk about it in the language of law of attraction, that's the idea behind it, is this law of attraction that brings things into your life as you dwell on it. So, man, I don't know. I really feel like I've already done this. Okay, hold on just a second. I know that I'm literally right in the middle of the story, but I have to tell you about what just happened. So I decided to stop the recording because I just had this intense feeling that I had already talked about this. This podcast is kind of going a little differently because I usually write out the podcast and then kind of set it to the side and speak whatever's coming to my heart, but having an outline of what it is that I want to talk about. Well, this one I decided to try it a little differently. And although I did write this podcast previously, I essentially am not following any outline. I am just ad-libbing and talking to you today with the ponderings and expression of my heart. And the reason why I felt confident in doing this for this podcast is because, like I said, this is something that is just so ingrained and a part of me. Well, I sat there and I kept thinking, I've done this before. I swear this was already written. It's just flowing freely from me, and so freely that I just kept thinking, I've already said this. So I turned everything off and I went back to all of my podcasts. And while some of these things have been mentioned before, really, I haven't shared these stories with you. And I thought about the possibility of tuning in to the message that needs to be spoken and to the message that you want to tell so strongly that it is as if it is already written for you, because it is written on your heart. And it was just a cool experience for me that just happened and gave me even more insight into the power of intuition and being authentic and speaking from a heart space rather than a head space. And so I just had to share that with you really, really quick. But we will get back to our manifesting story. I'm grateful that you're willing to go along on this wild ride and living through this in real time with me. And of course, I kind of forced you to go on this wild ride with me unless you skipped ahead in the podcast. So let's go on back. I had just learned about manifestation and the concept behind it, but I really wanted to put it to the test. So I was thinking, let's start with something really easy. Let's start with manifesting a pair of overalls. I know this sounds kind of weird, but it was during a time when you could not find overalls anywhere. Nowadays, overalls are super popular. You can find them almost in any store that you go to, including Walmart and Target. They're not a specialized item anymore. You can find them anywhere. But at this time, you literally could not find them anywhere. And I also had a very strict budget. We were incredibly poor at this time. So I had like $15 to spend on a pair of overalls. And if you know anything about overalls or jeans or pants, it's probably going to be more than $15. I knew that essentially I was going to have to buy these secondhand in order to manifest them in my life within the budget that I had set aside. I even got more specific with this because I remember learning that the more specific we are with the things that we want to manifest, the more specific it comes to us. And I shared in a previous podcast about how I had kind of a silly goal to be a regular someplace and how it ended up being not exactly what I had planned on it being, but I did in fact manifest being a regular someplace. I talked about this on episode 5. So if you want to revisit that story and learn a little bit more about manifestation, go to podcast episode 5. But the more specific you get with your manifestation, the better. So I decided I wanted a pair of overalls. They needed to be within $15 and I wanted them jean, but like a dark jean, and I didn't want them to have any holes in the knees. I wanted them to not be frayed or anything like that. And I needed them, of course, to be in my size. So I set out with this very specific intention and manifestation in mind. And I decided to tune into my intuition to kind of go out and actively manifest this. Now, I'm going to tell you that this isn't how manifestation always works. Sometimes manifestation requires action, and we'll have nudgings or ideas that lead us to action. And then there's another part of manifestation that is allowing the flow of the universe to come to us, using the law of attraction to just simply attract these things to us. You'll likely use these two kind of methods or feelings behind manifestation in creating what it is that you want. There's strategic times to use them both. And in this time, I decided to be very action oriented. I'm going to go out and I'm going to search for this and I'm going to get it today. So I knew that I needed to go to a secondhand store. And there's a store nearby me that's called Deseret Industries, or what we call the DI. It's just a secondhand store. Anybody can donate items to it. So going into this store, I looked at all of the racks, and luckily they have it very well organized. So they have jeans on a specific rack. And so I go over to the jeans and I flick through it, and I looked along the walls because sometimes there's things up against the walls that aren't on those racks. And it became apparent to me that I was not going to find my pair of overalls in the DI. And this was really sad to me because I was very excited to experience and to experiment on manifestation. And I wanted to go into that DI and I wanted to find it right there and then. And I believed with all my heart and soul that I was going to go in there and I was going to find those overalls. So I leave the DI and I'm disappointed. and decide to just go back home and call it a day. And on my way back home, I end up passing 2 other clothing stores. Now, the first clothing store is Target, and then there's another clothing store that I had never been to before, but I did know that it was a secondhand store. It's called Uptown Cheapskates. At that moment, when I was driving past both of these stores, I had this really strong feeling that I should go into the Uptown Cheapskates store. But this felt scary to me in a way because I had never been into that store. I didn't know what to expect. I was super doubtful that they would have overalls because, like I said, overalls were not in style at the time. And so I was thinking, well, at a secondhand store, it won't be likely that there's overalls because a secondhand store means that somebody's purchased them and then got rid of them. And these overalls were coming into style. And so I thought, there's no way that they're going to be at that store, but they might be at Target. So I go into Target and I take a look around, and it once again becomes obvious to me that there are no overalls there. So I leave and I'm headed back home, and there's just this nagging feeling. Go to Uptown Cheapskates. Go. So I flip the car around and I'm like, what the heck? Let's just go in and see if they're there. I'm not feeling very positive about it. And when I walk in there, I just march straight to the associate. The employee then gives me an answer that I was not expecting. You know, actually, I think we do. I think we have 1 pair of overalls. They're hanging up on the wall as a display near the changing rooms. Let me go back and we'll see if they're still there. So we walk back to the changing rooms, and sure enough, there's a pair of overalls hanging on the wall. Now, I see a pair of overalls. That's great. We manifested a pair of overalls. But are they in my size? Are they in my price range? And do they have that specification of being dark and not having any fading or holes? And so I walk up to it. Sure enough, they're dark jeans and they don't have any holes. So they take it off the wall for me, and I walk into the changing room and I try them on, and they fit. They fit perfectly. And then I look down at the price tag, and I am sure that you can guess what I saw. $15 exactly. Holy cow, what the heck? I had just manifested the exact pair of overalls that I needed, and I totally resisted going to the place that I felt I needed to go to because I was unfamiliar with that store. So, of course, I took the overalls, definitely paid for them, and took them home. And they are to this day the pair of overalls that I manifested, my first conscious manifestation ever. And I still obviously love to tell this story because this story was the best lesson to me ever. The first time that I tempted the universe and said, hey, you show me what you can do. That day, I found the overalls. And it was this message from the universe that's like, hey, you're onto something. You can manifest what you want in your life. So now let's jump back to present day. I'm going to Costa Rica to spend a month with my family, learning how to surf just because I want to. Now that's a really important factor when it comes to creating the life of your dreams, is you have to know that it is okay to want it just to want it. And I know that that goes against so many things taught in society. I'm sure you've been told many times that it's not okay to want things just to want things. I've been told so many times in my life that I'm lazy, that I'm young and innocent, and that I need to get my crap together, and that it's shameful for me to not have a job that I work 9 to 5 at, grinding day after day after day. But in reality, I have created this life that I want because I want it that way. And we get stuck in the norms and the expectations of society. We're told that you can't have this life of your dreams and that you need to dream within reality. Knowing that it's okay to want things because you want them is step one. Because if we don't believe it, then how can we achieve it, right? If I don't believe that it's okay to want something, how can I even put it out in the universe to come back to me? Now, going to Costa Rica and spending a month there is a dream that I have had for a very, very long time. Actually, in my original dream, that dream was to sell everything, sell our house, and go and travel the world and just be wandering nomads. That is honestly my ideal. In my innate human design, if you've ever looked at a human design chart, there are so many parts in my chart that are affirming of this love that I have. When I was young, I would watch cultural dances and I would be brought to tears because I love the idea of different cultures and different celebrations of life. I wanted to be able to be a part of somebody else's everyday life and to learn from their experiences. Even now, when I'm at Disneyland and I'm watching a performance by the Dia de los Muertos dancers, I cry. I love it so much. This is something that is innate within me. It's not good enough for me to just spend a week someplace and to just kind of get a taste or a flavor. I want to be part of it. I want to be totally immersed in it. So I have this goal, this desire that I want to manifest, right? Of selling everything and being nomads. Well, there's another factor to this. I'm married. I have a husband and I have kids. And when you're trying to manifest something, you cannot try to manifest something for somebody else. Everybody has a choice. Everybody has their individual preferences, and you can't force somebody to do something. So included in this manifestation that I desired is my family. I wanted to pack up and not just travel the world by myself, but I wanted to pack up and do it with my family. But they have their own choice. And specifically, my husband didn't like this idea. It makes him feel very uncomfortable to do this. He's an Enneagram 8 and he loves to stay within his comfort zone and going and traveling the world and putting our financial stability at risk and putting his family in potentially unsafe scenarios definitely puts him out of his comfort zone. So here I am. I have this major goal and desire, but my husband also has his preferences on what his life looks like. And I can't change his mind for him. I can ask him, I can request, I could bring it up. We can kind of think about it together, but I can't change his mind ultimately. He's the only one that can do that. So I have this hiccup in my plan and in my manifestation that I'm including somebody else in it and they don't want to manifest that. So for years, I was really disheartened because how is it that I support Andrew and the way that he wants to live and then also fulfill the things within my heart and soul and my desires? And I thought, this is never going to work. And I spent many a days crying and feeling sorry for myself because this was the thing that I wanted and I didn't see a way that I could make it happen. This is where another principle comes in when it comes to creating a life of your dreams. Not only do you have to be very mindful of who you're creating that life with, but you also need to start looking for different ways to make this dream and this life manifest in your life while still being respectful to those that you love and supporting them. One day I had a thought. Okay, Lara, you can't make this happen how you want it to happen. You're not going to sell your house and go and travel the world. How can you make it happen? And I opened my mind to different possibilities of being able to make this become a reality for me, of being able to go and immerse myself in different cultures and still respect my husband and his desires. So I started to look for different ways that I could do this. One of the most obvious ways is ditching my husband and my kids and traveling the world. That really wasn't an option for me because I value my family and being with them, and I love my husband, and that's important for me as well. So let's throw that one out the window, although it is a way to make this happen. But let's keep exploring other ways. And then another thought came to me. Well, what if it doesn't have to look like selling your house? What if there's a way to travel while you can still keep your house? Well, this is kind of hard because you have to maintain enough financial stability to still pay your mortgage. And a lot of times people will do this with the money that they make by selling their house. So how am I going to come up with the money to be able to keep our house and still go and travel? Got my wheels turning even more, and I thought about it and pondered on it and allowed for those options to come into my mind. I asked the question, how can I make this happen? The obvious way isn't happening, so how can I make this happen? And as I continued to think about it, it led me to where we are today. We came up with a scenario where I would come up with enough money to pay for a month-long stay at one destination every year was my goal, because then I'm not taking from our family's financial stability. I'm allowing my family to stay in our house and have that security, but then I'm also giving myself the opportunity to go someplace new and immerse myself in a culture, not just a fleeting trip, but to be there and feel it all. So I presented it to Andrew and I said, okay, what do you think about this idea? I know I've come to you about 1 trillion times trying to figure out how we can travel the world. What do you think about this one? And I was very hesitant to bring this idea up to him because there's been so many times that I've tried to present an idea and it just has not felt right to Andrew. So I kind of threw this idea out to him and waited to see what came back. And his response was, yeah, I think that could happen. Like if you can go and make the money for this trip, I would be happy to explore the idea some more. Well, it took him a while. He's kind of the man that has to marinate on things. And so it took him a minute to kind of come around to the idea. But eventually he said, yes, I can absolutely support this dream of yours in this way. All it took was me asking the question, how is this going to work? And opening my mind wider than the expectations that I had placed on it. It's kind of like me going to the DI and Target because I was comfortable with it. I thought, okay, this is the way that I'm going to get it. And then actually finding it at a store that I had never been to. And that wasn't top on my list as an option to manifest this into my life. So sometimes we have to be open to asking a question. So sometimes we get to a point where we want to manifest something, but we get caught up. We hit a wall, and it's seemingly a wall that we cannot pass. So now we have to start looking for a different way, whether that's around or over or digging a tunnel under. But I promise you that there is going to be a way for you to be able to manifest your dreams, but you're going to have to get a little creative, a little bit outside of the box, and stop limiting yourself on how it can happen. Next thing I know, I'm on an airplane with my family, and we went on our very first month-long stay to the island of Hawaii. The reason why we went to Hawaii is because it was also a comfortable place for Andrew. And I wanted to support him as he supported me. So he felt that he could go there and have reliable internet, be able to keep his job and be able to show up there. And then also it was, the same currency and it was the same language, and we kind of knew what to expect. We loved our time there. And every single day we would go out after we did some homeschool and we would adventure and we would eat the local food. We would have Spam and Kahlua pork and go to a variety of beaches, black sand beaches, white sand beaches, and we just explored all over. And I got to finally fulfill this lifelong dream of mine to immerse myself in a culture that was a little different than mine and to learn from the people and learn from the land. Now, let's talk about this in maybe a different language. I like to talk about this in many different ways because I feel like this is around us. We're told these ideas, but it might not be in the language that you're used to speaking. And by that, I just mean, are you more of a scientifically minded person? Are you more analytical? Are you more spiritual? Are you more energetic? Are you more religious? Are you so on and so forth? So let's put this in some different languages. Now, scientifically, the law of attraction has technically not been proven. So from a scientific, factual place, what we can say here is that taking time to think about what you want, to have it present on your mind, you are more likely to make choices that will lead you to that place. And I completely agree with this. This lifestyle that I live was very consciously thought out, or maybe even unconsciously thought out. When I was looking for a potential mate, I knew that I wanted a lifestyle that was a little different than everybody else's. I wanted a lifestyle full of adventure and of travel. And Andrew, my husband, definitely fulfilled those check boxes for me. We met at a food eating competition and he invited me right then and there to go canyoneering with him. Something that I have loved to do in my past and that he loved to do. And without even hardly knowing me, he spontaneously invited me to go canyoneering. And basically, I knew within that trip that I really liked this guy and that he was going to be a really good partner in life for me. So I found a man who loved the same things that I loved. And like I said, I don't know if this was conscious or unconscious, but it was definitely something that, looking back on, I cultivated in my life so that I could live the type of lifestyle that I wanted to live. And this continues on through a series of decisions in my life that made it possible for me to have the life that I have now. Being conscious of what you want and you desire helps you to be able to make choices to be more in alignment and to be in a place where that can become more of a reality. So scientifically speaking, just having an awareness of it helps you to manifest it. Okay, now let's talk about this in kind of a more spiritual, woke idea. I talked about and mentioned the law of attraction. And this is something that is pretty well known and pretty well accepted within society today. And the cool thing is that you can see story after story of people using the law of attraction to be able to gain success in those things that they desired. So I want to kind of visit a few celebrities that were clearly successful, but they used the law of attraction in order to reach that success. So I'm quoting here from a website where Jim Carrey talks about using the law of attraction and visualization to be able to obtain what he wants. He said, "I would visualize having directors interested in me and people that I respect saying, 'I like your work.' I would visualize things coming to me that I wanted, and I had nothing at the time, but it just made me feel better. I would drive home and think, well, I do have these things. They're out there. I just don't have a hold of them yet, but they are out there. I wrote myself a check for $10 million for acting services rendered and gave myself 3 years. I dated it Thanksgiving 1995, and I put it in my wallet, and it deteriorated and deteriorated. Then, just before Thanksgiving 1995, I found out that I was going to make $10 million on Dumb and Dumber. Will Smith is another example of this, and he says, I believe that I can create whatever I want to create if I can put my head on right, study it, learn the patterns, and it's really hard to put in words. It's really metaphysical, esoteric nonsense, but I feel very strongly that we are who we choose to be. This is not a new idea. People are using this all the time to create a life that they want. All right, now let's talk religion. The Bible, very well-known scripture. The very first story is what? It is the story of creation. And it is so cool to me. How did God create the earth? How did he create us? He created it through speaking it. He said, let there be light, and there was light. So I found a story or a thought that I had a while ago on this same subject through a document that I've created called Life Lessons. And I want to read a little bit of these thoughts that I had many years ago. How does God create something? He says it, and it is. He thinks about it, and it happens. I remember driving home from my parents' house thinking about this concept one day. We are taught that we are to be like God and that we are his children, patterned after his own self. If this is true, don't we too have the power to create things with only a thought? Could a thought be a real, tangible thing? When we think about something, are we actually creating it in the very moment, exactly what we thought? Is it possible that we are all just like God, but lack the ability and the knowledge to manifest things immediately? Our thoughts bring something into creation, just not as quickly as God can do it. I've been thinking a lot recently about Albert Einstein and just kind of scientists in general. And I'm not going to pretend that I am well educated in science. I do know that Albert Einstein knew that there were some kind of fundamental building blocks, even though he couldn't see them and nobody had ever discovered them before. And he, in his life, mathematically proved the presence of atoms, the existence of them, and that they are a building block to all life. So it makes me think about all of these things that we can't scientifically prove yet, that we don't understand yet. But I think that we have a future where we can gather the tools and the understanding to be able to understand how manifestation works in our life and that law of attraction being scientifically proven. These are just theories that I have. One last thought of today is going back to Jim Carrey's statement where he said, I do have it. I do have these things. I just don't have a hold of them yet. And this is kind of a more esoteric, metaphysical concept that I believe in, where everything that we've ever wanted exists around us, but we have to claim it. Our inability to claim it is often due to our self-worth and our belief that we are worthy of claiming those things, of claiming those blessings from God, of manifesting, of being able to bring them to life and be able to speak their reality. It has a lot to do with your perception of self-worth. So as you're manifesting, I think it's really important to take time to address the beliefs of your self-worth. And a lot of times, basically any kind of healing and creation starts with addressing our wounds and our belief systems. Now, I think that we need to do a whole podcast on tools to address our beliefs and what that even looks like. When I go in and I know I need to do work internally, how can I do that work internally? So I think we need to get into the nitty-gritties of that. But I don't want to do that today. I want to be able to give that subject justice. Ladies and gentlemen, listening to this podcast, if we were to leave with one idea, I want you to know that life is meant to be enjoyed, that your wildest dreams are absolutely a possibility, and that you are the one responsible for bringing those into your life. I know that there are people who are born with privileges. I am one of those people. I have definitely had a life that has allowed me to more easily obtain the things that I want to obtain. But I want you to know that no matter what you were born into, no matter your privilege, no matter your traumas, that you can absolutely take steps towards the direction of the life that you want to have. Ask yourself, what do I need to do now in order to take one step forward to the life that I want? That is a powerful question, my friends. Journal on it, think about it, let it open the door to the possibilities of your life. Don't just ask those questions. Get really specific. Decide on something that you want to manifest and start experimenting on this so that you can know for yourself how this shows up specifically in your life. I'm not done yet, personally. I still have more that I want to experience just for the sake of experiencing it. And I'm going to continue to manifest huge, audacious things in my life. And at the same time, try my very best to see the life that I currently have around me, the blessings that I have that abound, and appreciate them. I love you. We'll talk next time. If you are enjoying the content that you're listening to here on the Soul Script podcast, I have something that I think you might be interested in. And this is one-on-one transformation coaching with myself. Sometimes we just want to take things to the next level. And what this requires is somebody there who can personalize your journey for you. So maybe this is a really transformative time in your life, or you're going through a major transition. Or maybe it's just you wanting to break through some barriers and do some belief work. That is something that I can help you with and that I would love to help you with. These one-on-one sessions can look a variety of ways, but no matter what, I just want you to have a space where you feel comfortable and you have somebody who's giving you individual one-on-one attention that is really specific to whatever it is that you are going through or wherever it is that you are trying to get to. And that is what I specialize in. One-on-one conversations where we talk about you, your story, and where necessary, we help rewrite your story so that you can have a better quality of life, having more joy in your life, and just reaching those things that you're trying to reach for. So if this is calling your name, then you can go over to soulscriptstudio.com where you can sign up for a one-on-one consultation with myself, and we can get to work on whatever it is that you specifically need. I am so excited about this, and I really hope that I get to see you one-on-one.